So what I'm looking at now is this is a news article from a Korean news site called the Korea Bizwire. And you and I, it's funny because we were talking about being new fathers, and this article is actually sort of related to being new fathers. So when I have a student like you, we might look at the headline of the article and then read the article together, talk about any difficult vocabulary words, and discuss the article.
Okay.
As sort of a topic discussion. So we're looking here, you can see here's a picture of a baby sleeping, right? And let's look at the headline here. The headline says, "New dads suffer as postnatal care centers impose stringent visitor restrictions." So the headline has some difficult words. Are there any words here that you're not familiar with, that you don't know?
Postnatal.
This one here, postnatal?
Yeah, postnatal.
Good. So anytime we use the word post in English, this means after. So we can sort of kind of think of this as after. After, and then natal has to do with a woman having a baby. So, another word for that is birth. So after birth, after a woman has a baby, we say postnatal.
Postnatal.
Right, good. And so new dads suffer as postnatal care centers. So you have this big word here, postnatal care place, center.
Oh, after birth place, right?
That's right. So this is the place where the mom and the baby go after the birth, right? And I think you know the Korean word for this, right? That's right. And the Korean word, you might say 조리원, right?
Ah, yeah, sorry.
And so the idea is dads are having a hard time because these places are making strict rules for visitors. So, restriction, we can say, is another word for rule. Stringent might be tough, hard, difficult rules for that. And so this is really affecting new fathers. And if we talk about a little bit of context, postnatal care centers, this is something that's unique to Korea. I'm from the United States, and my country, we don't have postnatal care centers for moms and for babies. It's just, 2 or 1 day in the hospital and then go home. So it's a little bit difficult for moms and for babies. So it seems like Korea is a little bit nicer.
Yeah, right.
Has a little bit more options.
So you had experience to have Jorion?
That's right.
It was so expensive, right? Even if
yes,
2 weeks,
very expensive.
Almost the 1 million, like 100만 원? 또 100만 원, like almost 2 million.
Yes, when my wife stayed, it was around 2 million, and she stayed about 10 days. So, I think women, they have the option to stay for 1 week or 10 days or 2 weeks.
Right.
How about you? How long did your wife stay when she had your son?
Me too, like 10 days to 2 weeks, I think.
Somewhere around there, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, it was about 2 million won. It was expensive, very expensive. But, moms can have, a place to sleep and nurses to take care of them and nurses to take care of the babies and all the food and all of that.
Yeah, I know. So she and I satisfied with staying the Jorion, like a postnatal care center. Yeah.
Good. Postnatal care center. Great.
Yeah.
So nowadays, the big news story every day that we hear about in the news all over the world is the coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus. And so this article has a little bit to do with that, or everything to do with, this COVID-19. So normally I ask my student to read. So if you like, could you just read maybe a little bit of this article? I don't think you want to read all of this article, but if you don't mind, could you read some of this article and I can help you?
Oh, okay. 37-year-old worker referred to Kim was asked to leave right after he brought his wife and newborn twin postnatal care center. After the resurgence of
Yes, resurgence. Good.
resurgence of coronavirus disease 19 in South Korea in recent days, the National Postnatal Care Center shifted their policy towards banning the interaction of any guardian with those staying in their facilities.
Very good. Okay. So you did a very good job reading that. Were there any words or phrases that were difficult to understand?
Resurgence is, I can get what does it mean exactly.
Right. You can probably guess, but it basically means a return of something. So a renewal, revival, recovery, comeback.
This article is today article, right?
Yes, I believe it was a few days ago.
Yes. Yeah.
So, because of the return, in Korea, in March, the COVID-19 virus sort of peaked and then went down, but now it's returning.
Yeah.
And we would call this a resurgence.
Resurgence.
Coming up again. So, even just these two paragraphs, you can understand the main idea of the article, right?
Yeah, I understand.
And the man that it's talking about is a man named Kim, and his wife, they had twins, and he brought them to the postnatal care center, the Choriwon, but the nurses said, okay, you have to go. You have to leave. You can't stay here. And so this is a little bit difficult for the father, right? And this is happening because of the resurgence of COVID-19 in South Korea.
Well, I know that is an article, but I'm just wondering, Kim already paid the money to the postnatal care center, right?
Good. Yes, I think he already paid. Yes. I think it might say, this came as a surprise because it says Kim, who originally planned to commute between his workplace and the postnatal care center, had to go back home alone. And so I think the article is saying it was a surprise. He already paid. He expected to stay there. But, the nurses and the people said, I'm sorry, because of the coronavirus, you can't stay here. Only the mom and the babies and nurses can stay here. So I think that would be very difficult for the husband, very difficult for the father, right?
Yeah. I think he got shocked, right?
Yes, I think this must have come as a very big shock to him. And I think, you've had a baby recently. When you and your wife had your son, were you able to stay at the postnatal care center? Did you stay there together?
Together, yeah. After finishing my work,
Yes.
I go there and spend time with
good.
baby and wife.
Right. And it was probably a special time, right?
Yeah.
And first baby, and it's important for the father to be around for that, to be there. So, but if a woman stays for 2 weeks with her baby and the father can't go, that sounds stressful. And so that's why it says new dads are suffering. That they're having a hard time, a stressful time.
Get a hard time, right?
Yes. So have a hard time, we can say suffer.
I have a hard time, suffer. Okay.
Yeah, sure. And we can write that down so you can remember. So postnatal care center, that's what we think of as the Choriwon. And suffer, we can basically say, have a hard time, have a, difficult time, hard time. Right. So, and then there's more article. Would you like to continue a little bit more of this article?
Okay. So that will be last the sentence.
Sure.
Yeah, thereafter he has been restricted from stepping into the post-natal care center, except for few instances in which he left some item for his wife and the twins in front of the door of the room where they are resting.
Good. So, after he went home, he couldn't go inside the postnatal care center, except for a few instances when he left some items for his wife. Do you know this word, another word for instance?
For example?
Yes, very good. For a few instances or a few times.
A few
examples.
Oh, okay.
You can think of it as times or examples in which he left some items for his wife and the newborn twins in front of the door of the room where they were resting. So that was it, right? So difficult time. And this article talks about more. I think maybe we don't have time to finish all of this article.
Yeah.
But it talks about other examples about, men, new fathers not being able to go, and that it's difficult for the fathers, but also difficult for the new moms because they can't see their husbands and their husbands can't help. And it's also difficult even for the nurses who work there. So, and saying, the big conclusion is, in Choriwons, in these postnatal care centers, the reservation rate fell by 20 to 30% in the past year. So people are not making reservations. People are not going to Choriwons anymore. It just seems like everyone is suffering from this COVID-19 virus, So anyway, do you have any questions about this article or anything else you would like to discuss today?
I think I understand that article. And lastly, I have a question that, could you give me a tip of learning English for the Korea student?
So for Korean students to learn English?
Yeah, right. How to improve their English properly?
Yes. So in my experience, the best thing for improving English, obviously, is speaking English. That's the best thing. But for grammar, 문법 is mostly what people need to help, what they need to improve. So, reading. Reading is the best way to improve your grammar and just your English in general, especially to read books that you can understand. You can understand most of it, then find news articles or books or even comic books or children's stories, anything that you're interested in, read.
Reading is the best way to improve English.
I believe so, especially English grammar.